Let's bring Reverend Al Sharpton into the conversation. He's the host of MSNBC's Politics Nation. Reverend, thanks so much for being here. I want to start with what you think John Conyers should do here. Should he step aside from his House Judiciary position while this is investigated?
I talked earlier today, Casey, with Congressman Gregory Meeks, who is a member of the Congressional Black Caucus and works with us in civil rights. He has said that he feels that Congressman Conyers should step aside. We all certainly celebrate his work down through the years, but these are very serious charges. He should have the right to defend himself, but should step aside from the Judiciary Committee, not his seat, from his position there until the Ethics Committee has satisfied these charges either way.
Reverend, you mentioned Congressman Gregory Meeks. We actually have the sound of him talking a little bit about this earlier today. Let's take a look at that.
You do think he should step down as the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee even before this investigation?
Yeah, I think that given that there is one and now another incident of women coming in to say that it would not be appropriate on the Judiciary Committee to sit there, he should step down as the ranking member with the opportunity, if he defends himself and says and it shows there's nothing there, that he can come back. But you can't, in my estimation, in the scenario we're in, to be the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee at this time. I think that he should step down.
Meeks' stance is different from what James Clyburn had to say to the New York Times. He says he's not sure that these claims against Conyers have, quote, any real substance. And he says, quote, you can't jump to conclusions with these types of things. For all I know, all of this could be made up. Reverend, what do you think accounts for the discrepancy here? Why are you on a different, you and Congressman Meeks on a different page from Jim Clyburn?
I think that the page that we're on is saying in terms of the sensitivity of the Judiciary Committee. I think that what Congressman Clyburn is saying is that we could find out
white
that
scandals
some of this is not accurate.
Black
We're not
politicians
here with a situation that he does not deserve the right to defend himself.
Walk like a duck.
He is not deserving the right.
Quack like a duck.
In fact, Casey, on the second accuser,
get caught up in some duck shit.
Complaint. Well, that has to be looked into. Well, why did they come with their complaint? You can't write one news story, have an accuser, and all of a sudden that becomes the fact, because then everyone could be subjected to that. So I think that is what Congressman Clyburn is saying. But I think what Meeks has raised to some of us is the fact that the Judiciary Committee, where he'd have to hear and conduct as ranking member, looks into other situations, that could be reason for him to step aside from that position until this is cleared up, not from his congressional duties.
Doug Thornell, let's talk about this issue a little bit more broadly. You worked on Capitol Hill for a long time. How big of a problem is sexual harassment on Capitol Hill? Is this, in fact, just the tip of the iceberg, what we're seeing with Congressman Conyers?
I think it's probably the tip of the iceberg. We've heard today that, that millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money was devoted for settlements. More of those members are going to be revealed over the next few days, weeks, months. I'm pretty sure of it. And the nature of the place, you've got there are a bunch of old, like Conyers, a bunch of these guys, these are old codgers who are who are operating in a world that no longer exists and shouldn't have existed in the first place in terms of how you treat women. And it's going to be very hard. I think you heard the story today about Barton. You've got the Conyers, and you've got Conyers. You've got a situation where these folks don't necessarily have anything to do afterwards, so getting them to go is going to be really hard. But they also are looking at the president. They're looking at President Trump, and they're looking at Roy Moore, and they're saying, these guys haven't gone anywhere. Why should I step down? Now, I don't agree with that, but I think if you're Conyers, if you're some of these folks who are going to be dealing with this, there haven't been consequences for the president. There hasn't been consequences for Roy Moore, and they're looking at themselves and saying, well, why should I be the first one to fall here?
Let's talk for a second about Al Franken as well, because I think one of the ways that this conversation has expanded as person after person has been subject to these kinds of claims is the question of degrees, and at what point and how do you punish people? I think we have a poll that shows just how many people believe that Al Franken should resign. So 50% of this Politico Morning Consult poll said Franken should step down, and no, 22%. I mean, this is something that I've heard from my Democratic sources they're very much grappling with how to respond to this. At what point do they say, hey, we have a line in the sand, a zero tolerance policy for this? I mean, Ashley, what's your sense of where that line should be here?
I don't have a good answer, but to your point, one of the things that I've also sort of just find sad generally as a human, that is, as we're talking about all these things, people really are sort of debating, gradations of badness. And is a Charlie Rose quite the same as an Al Franken? Some people say any sexual impropriety, any sexual harassment is unacceptable, which it absolutely is. But they might want to treat them in different ways, and I think everyone is grappling with that right now.
Well, Crystal, why is this okay in politics? Is it simply because voters vote en masse? I mean, it's not okay in corporate America. Clearly, people that have
No, because you
major and
motherfuckers not
significant
adults. That's
repeated
why.
accusations leveled at them have been fired or suspended. That doesn't happen with these candidates.
Well, finally,
we can see.
Finally, and people are all surprised. Gee, I worked with this guy at some big Hollywood company for 20 years, and now, gee, what a surprise. I mean, so I wouldn't say corporate America has clean hands
Old
on this.
bastards with nothing to
I
do.
don't think Washington
And
does.
a
I think
young
it's
fat
terrible.
butt walk by.
And there are gradations.
What you think
and
they're
there are
gonna
people
do?
doing things, on the job as opposed to off the job, using their position of power as opposed to just being creeps.
Young,
At the end
pretty
of the
legs
day,
standing
it's
there
bad.
holding a piece
I'm
of
not
paper
in favor
talking
of
about sign
we should
this.
have a constitutional amendment just for the next 2 years. Only women can be elected to Congress. We should have a 535 female members of Congress for the next Congress, and that would clean the place out, and then we can move forward. That's
I'm
my
not
proposal.
supposed to express political opinions in my job, Bill. You're making it very difficult for me to not agree with you. Reverend Al Sharpton, thanks so much for your time, sir. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We